Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today, I'm looking at more Dynasty Rookie Sleepers. Make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe if you haven't. Let's go. So, our first sleeper is Audric Estime out of Notre Dame. Now, I noticed that he's falling really far in rookie drafts, even farther than I would have thought, just because of a few issues. So, let's look at his college profile and see what we think. So in 2021, he barely played. He just had 7 carries for 60 yards. Then in 2022, he picked it up, 156 carries, 920 yards, 11 touchdowns, 5.9 yards per carry, and 9 catches, 135 yards and a touchdown. Then in 2023, even better. More carries, 210 carries, more yards, 18 touchdowns, 6.4 yards a carry. That's great. 17 catches for 142 yards. I'd like to have seen more in the receiving game, but it's fine. There's nothing wrong with his college profile. What are his strengths? What are the strengths of Audric Estime? So, first of all, he's an early declare. So he played those 3 seasons and then came out. He turns 21 in September. So he's, not quite as young as Braylon Allen, but one of the youngest running backs in this class and would be young for any class. A proven goal line back. Yes, we see 29 touchdowns in his 2 starting seasons. Excellent. That's excellent. That's great. Good rushing efficiency. 5.9 yards per carry in 2022. I mean, at a school like Notre Dame, that's good. And then 6.4 in 2023. Excellent. Excellent. So if we look at the production profile, we have a lot of strengths. And it came at a big school. Notre Dame is a big school. He played at a high level, not at a smaller school. So we know he can do it against a good level of competition. Now, what are the weaknesses, though? Because there are quite a few of them. Very slow. The 4.71 second 40-yard dash is what we all heard about. And that took him off teams' boards, I think. It's just too slow. That's not going to work for a lot of teams. If that's really how fast he is, he won't be able to be good in the NFL. So hopefully he plays faster than that 40-yard dash showed. Ranked 25th among running backs in athleticism. That's bad. That's bad. Let's be honest with ourselves. That's not good considering this is a weak running back class. A lack of passing game work. Did he get a few catches? Yes. Is he going to be a fantasy relevant passing running back, receiving running back in the NFL? No, he will not. And then lastly, he feels like, and there's no real way to quantify this, but he feels like a running back from 20 to 25 years ago. The kind of running back that if we were doing this draft in 2000 or 2005, he might be, a second or third round pick. But the NFL just doesn't love these types of players anymore, these bruisers. He's a big guy. So where'd he go? Denver Broncos, 5th round, 147th overall. How's he fit there? Well, I kind of see it as very simple. Javonte Williams is the starter. He's kind of a do-it-all back. He hasn't really been shown to be great at anything, but he can do everything. Jaleel McLaughlin is a change of pace. Good in the passing game, change of pace. Samaje Perine will be cut. And Audric Estime is like a bruiser. So what I'm seeing here is that if Javonte Williams went down, they could replace Javonte Williams half with Jaleel McLaughlin, who does some things well, and half with Audric Estime, who does other things well. So there is room for some playing time, but I do think he starts as the RB3 right now, and it is a weak offense on the Broncos. I do have him 311, 35th overall. It's just because this is a player we liked coming into the process. The combine hurt him, but I don't want to drop him too far because we know he has talent. And for those reasons, I have him RB50 overall. Next up, Will Shipley. So similarly, Shipley went to a big college at Clemson, and he was solid, if unremarkable there. Let's take a look at it. So first year, 149 carries, 739 yards, 11 touchdowns, 5 yards a carry, and 16 catches for 116 yards. Then next year, stepped it up, 210 carries, 1,182 yards, 15 touchdowns, 5.6 yards a carry, and 38 catches for 242 yards. And then the last year, a little bit of a setback, 167 carries, 827 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5 yards a carry, and 31 catches, 244 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So we kind of have a lot in common here between Shipley and Audric Estime, but with some differences. What are Shipley's strengths? The strengths of Will Shipley. Early declare as well. Played 3 years, came out. Turns 22 in August. That's relatively young, actually, for this class. Great athleticism, unlike Estime. Can be used in the passing game, which is good. And the ability to take a large workload. He does have the ability to do that. We saw 3-down workload in all 3 years. Now, what are some weaknesses of Will Shipley? The final season was not as good as 2022, so that's not ideal. Didn't build on his improving efficiency. He improved from 2021 to 2022, but in 2023 was slightly less efficient on the ground. The next part, he's a bit boring. I don't really know how to say that, but he's boring. Like, he's just kind of okay at everything. He doesn't deliver some special quality. I don't see that from Will Shipley. I just see boring. I see okay, just okay. But we know that that's not always a death sentence for running backs. If you get the volume, just being okay can make you very fantasy relevant and kind of not a difference maker in the same way. He's not going to be that X factor for an offense. Where'd he go in the NFL draft? Philadelphia Eagles, 4th round, 127th overall. How does he fit in there? Well, I think he has a battle for Kenneth Gainwell for RB2 behind Saquon Barkley. Unfortunately, he's stuck on a team that doesn't throw to the running back. And that, I think, is the worst part of all of this. I really wished he'd gone somewhere else. Maybe the Chiefs, for example, would have been good, where the passing game running back is used. But we know that the Eagles just don't do it. Jalen Hurts just doesn't dump off. He runs instead. So for that reason, I'm not quite as high on Shipley as I might have been otherwise, because I do like the well-rounded skill set. I have him 306, 30th overall, just behind Bucky Irving, who I just like better. But I do have Shipley one spot behind him. And in Dynasty, he comes in at RB44. A young player, but he needs an injury to be relevant. And other than that, I see Saquon Barkley getting 75, 80% of the touches in year one. I don't think we'll see much of Will Shipley. So he's a handcuff at best. But we do know that any running back who plays as a starter for the Eagles will be fantasy relevant. It's not if. The offense is really good. So if Saquon Barkley gets injured, Will Shipley can play all 3 downs. Yes, which means he will have fantasy relevance. But just keep in mind, that's what you're looking at with Will Shipley, is a handcuff. Lastly, and this is probably the deepest sleeper, I guess, of all, Jacob Cowing, a player I loved in the pre-draft process. Let's look at why. So he went to UTEP for the first 3 years of college. Immediately was good. 31 catches, 550 yards, and 3 touchdowns as an 18-year-old freshman. Then he ran it back in the COVID year. 41 catches, 691 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Solid. Then, final year at UTEP, just 20 years old, 69 catches, 1,354 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Then he transferred to Arizona, and he was good again. 85 catches, 1,034 yards, and 7 touchdowns at a bigger school. And then in the final year, 90 catches, 848 yards, a little less efficient on yardage, but 13 touchdowns. What are his strengths? Productive throughout college. He was productive the whole time. Good from the beginning to the end. The speed is there. 4.38 second 40-yard dash. He is fast, although we'll get to that in a second. He's a little small, 5'8", 168 pounds. So in that respect, the 4.38 40-yard dash doesn't look quite as good at such a low weight. Not super impressive speed for his size. And I am worried that it's just not going to translate to the NFL. Is he going to be able to win at an NFL level? I don't know. And he's an older prospect. He turned 23 in February. Now, unfortunately, he got buried on the 49ers. 4th round, which is actually pretty good draft capital for him. It's where I thought he would go, but 135th overall, a little late in the 4th, and buried on the 49ers depth chart behind Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and Ricky Pearsall, who they drafted in the 1st round. But it's a great offense. So if he ever gets in, he'll have some potential. Unfortunately, he probably needs some injuries to see any playing time. I rank him at the 408, 44th overall. I just see this as a good prospect, a productive prospect. It's not one of those speed small guys who did nothing and we're just looking at traits. No, he did produce at 2 different schools, one of which is a bigger school. So he does have that going for him, but the landing spot sucks. And if he just doesn't play at all year 1, he'll be dropped before year 2 in a lot of dynasty leagues. So you have to hope that there is an injury or a trade of Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk for him to see any value at all. But for the talent, I'm willing to take a stash shot on him in the late 4th round, just in case. And I have him wide receiver 87, just based on his overall profile. Now, if you like the video so far, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I have a bit of NFL news I want to talk about, actually a pretty big piece. So let's jump into it. So Zay Jones signed with the Cardinals, 1 year up to $4.25 million. They now have a wide receiver room. Marvin Harrison Jr. is their clear one. Michael Wilson and Zay Jones are the other 2 starters. They've replaced Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Zay Jones. That's a big overall upgrade. Now, none of Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, nor Zay Jones are a slot wide receiver. All 3 of them can go into the slot, but none of them are a slot wide receiver specifically. We know that they have Greg Dortch as the slot wide receiver, but I do see that they're going to use a lot of 12 personnel. They drafted Tip Ryman in the 3rd round. They have Trey McBride, and they also have Elijah Higgins on the roster as another depth tight end. So the real question is, who is the wide receiver 2 between Jones and Michael Wilson? Because I think this is going to be a team that plays at least a good amount of 12 personnel. So you need to be the one playing in 2 wide receiver sets. Let's look at Zay Jones. Over the last 2 years, 82 catches, 823 yards, 5 touchdowns, 5.1 catches, and 51.4 yards a game in 2022. But last year, he clearly regressed with Calvin Ridley coming in. Just 34 catches, 321 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3.8 catches, and 35.7 yards per game. For Jones, I do like this landing spot because it gives him a chance. So I moved him up to wide receiver 86, but he's already 28. Feels like more of a roster clogger. As for Michael Wilson, he was a wide receiver 2 last year. And oddly enough, was actually quite productive. 38 catches, 565 yards, which is more than I remembered for a rookie who missed some time. 3 touchdowns, 2.9 catches, and 43.5 yards a game. It's actually really good for a 3rd round rookie. This coaching staff and this general manager are the ones who picked Wilson in the 2023 NFL draft. So if I had to choose, I would lean that Wilson is the wide receiver 2 because he flashed as a rookie and this coaching staff and general manager picked him. Wide receiver 68, I have for Wilson. Didn't move him much based on this signing. And then, of course, this is the end of Greg Dortch, who has moved off my dynasty rankings. It's just not going to happen. Now, if you liked the video so far, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/fantasyadvice. Only patrons get to ask advanced questions for the YouTube. I have a couple of them here, so let's jump into it. First one, do you think Daniel Jones is a risky pick because of the injury clause in his contract? The Giants might shut him down like Carr and Wilson. There is an injury clause. If Jones cannot pass a physical in March 2025, $23 million of his $30 million salary for 2025 becomes guaranteed. I do expect the Giants, when they're out of the running, to bench Jones, just like the Colts did with Matt Ryan, the Raiders did with Derek Carr, the Broncos did with Russell Wilson. But I don't expect that to happen at the beginning of the year. Jones is already a risky pick. If he's good, he'll stay the starter. If he's bad, he'll be replaced and won't be around in 2025 anyway. So yes, he's risky, but this isn't really why. Thoughts on Brian Robinson with Eckler coming in? I find Robinson to be a boring asset. He turned 25 in March, going into year 3. He declined from 17.1 carries in 2022 as a rookie to 11.9 in 2023. But he rose in receiving volume and somehow had 4 receiving touchdowns on 43 targets. He's not going to get the receiving volume again with Austin Eckler there, who is a great receiver. And he's not going to get 4 receiving touchdowns on 43 targets again. So I think Brian Robinson is just not someone I'm interested in. He's not one of my players that I like, and definitely not a target for me. If you like the video, make sure to drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts on this video. As always, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my full Dynasty Fantasy Football advice, it's available on the Patreon. Every sign-up helps support my independent content. But once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all later.